Welcome, members, to the meeting of the Subcommittee on Rating Exemption Order 2026. This subcommittee, including myself, has 5 members. All of them are now present. I call to order the meeting of the subcommittee. Item 1, meeting with the administration. I will first invite the administration to come in.
今日喺3月20號
The House Committee meeting on the 20th of March, members agreed to establish a subcommittee to study the Rating Exemption Order 2026. For details, please refer to the Electoral Council brief on that order provided by the administration. Attending the meeting today, we have Ms. Carmen Cork, Senior Assistant Law Draftsman of the DOJ, Ms. Josephine Zhang, Principal Assistant Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury, Mr. Ronald Chan, Assistant Commissioner of Rating and Valuation Department, and Mr. Anson Lai, Deputy Secretary for FST. Now, concerning the exemption order, I asked members' views. Do we need to invite public submissions on the order? If so, we will publish a notice on the electrical website and notify the 18 district councils to extend an invitation to the public to make submissions on the exemption order. May I consult members' view on that? There is no need. Actually, in year 2019 and 20, we have established the same committee, and we did not invite the public to submit the submissions back then. But if they need to do so, the public has other channels to submit their views. This order has actually been announced in the previous budget. So before the budget was promulgated, public consultation has been conducted. Now we are moving on to the business proper. We'll proceed to a discussion on the policy. Members who would like to speak, please press the Request to Speak button. You may put forward views on the policy. I will first invite the administration to walk us through the order. Mr. Chan. Thank you, Chairman. This is the first meeting of the Subcommittee on Rating Exemption Order 2026. Thank you for the opportunity for me to explain the order. The order is to implement the proposals in the 2026-7 budget, that is, to exempt all domestic and non-domestic tenements from payments of rates up to a maximum of $500 for each of the period. In the first 2 quarters of this year, it will benefit some 3.59 million properties. About 12% of domestic ratepayers and 16% of non-domestic ratepayers will not need to pay any rates for the first 2 quarters of year 2026-7. The revenue foregone on the government's part will be $3.5 billion. In formulating the policy, the government has given consideration to Hong Kong's economic situation, the burden on the public coffer, and the needs of different sectors of society. In considering the exemption, the government has given careful consideration to the overall fiscal condition of the government. The rates exemption measure's objective is to lessen the financial burden on individuals and businesses. That concludes my briefing. We will be pleased to answer your questions. Thank you. One member has requested to speak. Ms. Elaine Chick. 4 minutes, questions and answers included. Thank you, Chairman. Of course, we will support a rates concession. Now, some views on the principle. All along, rates exemption are based on an unbiased principle. That is, there will be an across-the-board exemption for all tenements. Now, when the government's fiscal position is sound, there will be less issues. However, the government's fiscal condition has become more tight. Now, for example, the rate exemption this time is at a maximum of $500 for the first 2 quarters only. So the government should actually be more targeted in providing support to the most needed groups. As I've said many times in the Council, shouldn't we provide additional concession to elderly people who only have one property? That is, for all ordinary public, they should enjoy the same extent of exemption. However, for elderly people, they should enjoy extra concession. With that, we can provide a more targeted support to elderly people with reasonable administrative cost. Now, if the government considers it difficult to implement, can you tell us what the challenges are? Now, has the government studied the effectiveness of the progressive rate system implemented since the 4th quarter of the 2024? What's the impact on elderly people who only have one property in Hong Kong, and what's the rate revenue obtained from this group of people? If there is no such statistics, can we collect these statistics in the upcoming census? Now, we know that even when elderly people only have one set of property, they may not be owner-occupiers. But still, I would like to ask for this set of data from the government. Deputy Secretary. Thank you. Now, the principle of rate collection is based on evaluation on the rental value of the property, and then we would charge a rate according to the established rate level. So the basis is the valuation and the rental value of the property. So we would conduct an assessment based on the information we have on that property. So we consider the rental value of the flat. In obtaining statistics, the RVD makes no distinction of who the owners are and who is responsible for paying the rent or the rates. Since rate is charged on the basis of property, it is not necessarily the owner who pays the rates. Sometimes it's the tenant, sometimes it's the agent. Second, since we don't have these statistics with us concerning who pay the rents for domestic or non-domestic tenements or the rates, so we have no statistics on the number of household members in each flat and whether the elderly people are owner-occupiers. So sometimes the flat may be occupied by the elderly owner themselves as well as their family members. So we don't have these information. Concerning the progressive rate system, since its implementation in the 4th quarter of year 2024-5, it has brought the government additional revenue. Now, the current fiscal position of the government is rather challenging, so the government is seeking to increase revenue. So the progressive rate system has embraced the principle of affordable users pay more. So for people who own a property, they should be able to afford to pay more rates if their flats are more valuable. So since we don't have any information on whether the flat is occupied by occupied owners, especially elderly people, can we start obtaining this data? Well, we must understand the rate system and the rate exemption system is based on the principle of indiscriminated exemption and also low administrative cost. To introduce the system you mentioned, we have to establish a registration system. For each flag, the ratepayer has to provide information on the number of household members in the flags, whether they are owner-occupiers or whether there are tenants in the flags. So besides providing that information, the relevant ratepayers have to keep record of these data as well. That is particularly difficult for elderly people. And there will be additional work on the part of the RVD, for example, conducting checks to make sure that the system has not been abused, and that will come with additional administrative cost. So we were pleased to consider members' views. However, we think that the existing mechanism is fair and simple. So we suggest maintaining the current mechanism. Now, we have encountered some issues in past rate exemptions. For example, the Housing Authority has not offered a rebate to the tenants. Now, actually, PRH flags are also covered by this policy. So, is there any policy on the part of the Housing Authority to return the race exemption, the amounts saved from race exemption to the households? Some members have asked this question before. If an individual owns multiple properties, should they only enjoy a one-off race exemption? But that would come with a high administrative cost because the RVD has to inquire the owner about the choice of which flags he wants to enjoy race concession from. Now, for race under the cap of $500, well, there are 12% of domestic ratepayers and 16% of non-domestic ratepayers who will not need to pay any rates for the first 2 quarters of this year. So the revenue foregone will be some $3.5 billion. So any more questions from members? Mr. Yu Ming. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Administration. Now, the public is rather dissatisfied about the extent of race exemption this time around. They would like to have more than $500. Now, the government is encouraging members of the public to apply for reverse mortgage, especially for elderly people. So in the future, for participants or policyholders of reverse mortgage policies, the rates should be waived as well. There's only 1 million people who are policyholders of reverse mortgages. The revenue foregone would not be exorbitant. So for elderly people who do not have children, rate payment is actually a heavy burden for them. So for reverse mortgage policy holders, the government should consider waiving their rates across the board.
好，多謝主席，多謝議員嘅提議嘅。咁
Deputy Secretary, thank you.
Thank you, member, for his views. Regarding the concession of rates, as the Financial Secretary said in the budget speech, public finances have indeed improved, but we still have to tread cautiously. That's why, despite improvements in public finances and societal expectations, the extent of concessions is still kept at $500, but in the coming year, there will be a total of 2 quarters instead of just 1 quarter in the last financial year. We have indeed heeded public views. Regarding further concessions, I believe all of us understand very well that we need to keep a close watch on the financial position of the government as well as the economic situation of Hong Kong. We need to stay flexible. We believe these arrangements, that is, having 2 quarters of concessions, is quite an appropriate arrangement. Thank you, Mr. Yu, for his views regarding mortgage arrangements among the elderly. Thank you, member, for his views. When the RVD collects information, they use the unit as the basis. We don't have information regarding whether the elderly owner has taken out a reverse mortgage. We may need to ask the elderly owners to provide more information. But anyway, thank you, Mr. Yu, for your views. Dr. Webster Ng. Thank you. I go along with Deputy Secretary. Of course, as members of the public, the more concessions the better. It'd be the best if the public don't have to pay rates at all. But after all, we need to monitor public finances. The trend in Hong Kong is an aging population, as Ms. Lin Chick just now said. Well, I mean, we can collect more information on different fronts. The trend of an aging population will continue, so in the future there will be elderly people and an older age, and they will have to rely on collecting rents to make a living. So I believe the administration can draw reference from this recommendation. Deputy Secretary, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ng, for his views. We understand the impact of an aging population on different aspects of society. That is why we will tread cautiously when it comes to public finances. With a shrinking population, probably the government will have less salaries tax collected. More elderly members of the public may have to rely on receiving rents to make a living. We have been monitoring this aspect, not just in terms of public finance, but in relation to other policy portfolios. The government is also monitoring different developments. Thank you. Well, what complicates the situation is that the government has no information in relation to the status of the owners. That is, whether the owners are elderly people. The government doesn't have such information. The government doesn't have information in relation to whether a mortgage scheme is in effect either. Does any other member wish to speak? No? Then we will proceed to clause-by-clause scrutiny of the order. If members have no other views, let's proceed to the scrutiny of the order. If members have questions to ask or have views to express, please press the request to speak button. We're going to go over the Chinese text of the order. During the scrutiny, the legal advisor please reminds members of matters in relation to the legal and drafting aspects. I'm now going to ask the administration to walk us through the clauses. Please refer to Rating Exemption Order 2026, that is Legal Notice 20 of 2026. Thank you. I'm going to ask Ms. Zhang to take members through the order. First of all, we have the long title. That is, all domestic and non-domestic tenants are exempted from the payment of rates up to a maximum of 500 Hong Kong dollars for each of the period of the 1st April 2026 to 30th June 2026 and from the 1st of July 2026 to the 30th of September 2026. 1. Commencement. This order comes into operation on the 1st of April 2026. Any question? No. 2. Interpretation. In this order, concession period means each of the following periods. That is, 1. The period from the 1st of April to the 30th of June 2026, and 2. The period from the 1st of July 2026 to the 30th of September 2026, referring to quarter 1 and quarter 2 respectively. Any question? No. Let's proceed to 3. Exemption from payment of rates. For each concession period, a tenement included in a valuation list in force is exempted from the payment of rates to the extent of an amount equal to the rates otherwise payable or $500, whichever amount is less. If rates would otherwise be payable for only part of a concession period, the amount of $500 is reduced proportionately. Any question? No. Please continue. Well, that concludes my scrutiny. We have finished going over the Chinese text of the order. Any issue with the English text? Speaker not coming through.
我哋確認命令嘅中英
We confirm that the Chinese and English texts of the order have no inconsistencies. There are no legal or drafting issues either. Thank you, Chairman. Administration, do you need to remind members of any points to note? No? Thank you. We have finished the clause-by-clause scrutiny on the order. If members have any amendments to move, please send your draft amendments to the Secretariat by 5 p.m. on the 2nd of April 2026 so that the administration can provide a reply to your proposed amendments. I'd like to ask members if you would like to make any amendments to this order. No? All right. If members agree, the Secretariat will, by circulation, send the following documents to members, as we are not going to consult the public by way of a hearing. So if members have any views to express, please submit them to the Secretariat. Thank you. As per usual practice, the subcommittee needs to report to the House Committee before the deadline for giving notice of motion to amend subsidiary legislation. If members have no other views, I'm going to move this motion at the Council meeting next week on the 1st of April 2026 to extend the scrutiny period to the Council meeting on the 6th of May 2026. If the scrutiny period is extended by resolution, members, please refer to the following legislative timetable. The expiry date of the scrutiny period, the 6th of May. The date of reporting to the House Committee, the 24th of April. The deadline for giving notice to amend subsidiary legislation, the 28th of April. All clear? Anything to add? All right. Regarding the questions put by members, does the administration need to provide any written reply as requested by members? Any reply that is not clear enough? Mr. Lingchik? As I understand, the administration has undertaken some studies which are about applying an across-the-board equal approach. So looking ahead, will the administration have further information on an aging population to provide? Say for elderly people, does the administration have information regarding living in one self-owned property? If the administration doesn't have information at present, will the administration collect relevant information in the future so that we will have information to draw reference from? Just now we touched upon policy discussions. That is, for elderly people, does the administration have information on elderly tenants, or do any elderly tenants have reverse mortgage schemes in effect? In 2024 to 25, in the fourth quarter, there is the progressive rating system for domestic tenements. How is the administration going to deal with this regarding this concession of rates? I hope that the government can provide further written supplies for members to draw reference from. All right, thank you. Any other business? We'll have to see if members have any other matters to raise or any other amendments to make. If so, we are going to hold another meeting to deal with these views and amendments. If we need to convene another meeting, I'm going to be in touch with the Secretariat regarding convening another meeting. Any questions? No. There being no other business, meeting adjourned. Thank you.